You are always watching, not passively, not in the specific, helpless way of someone who is observing circumstances they cannot influence and simply receiving whatever they receive. In the specific, intentional, I am taking this in and I am waiting quality of someone who understood exactly what was happening and who made the deliberate, sophisticated, frequently underestimated choice to let it happen while they gathered the full picture. You played dumb. And playing dumb when you are not dumb is one of the most intelligent moves available to a person who understands that the full picture is more valuable than the early partial reveal. You understood. You simply chose not to announce the understanding. I want to begin with what played dumb actually means because it is not what it sounds like from the outside and it deserves its full, honest examination. Playing dumb is not deception, not in the harmful sense. It is the specific, strategic, entirely self protective quality of someone who has accurate information about a situation and who makes the deliberate choice not to deploy that information at the moment it arrives, who sees through something and chooses to let the something continue to unfold rather than disrupting the unfolding at its earliest, most incomplete stage. Why would someone do that? Because the incomplete stage does not yet show the full picture, because the full picture, when it arrives, is considerably more useful than the partial one. Because the person or the situation being allowed to unfold reveals in the unfolding everything that the early disruption would have prevented from being revealed. Because patience in the face of something that is trying to be hidden sometimes produces the specific, undeniable, cannot be taken back quality of evidence that early confrontation never produces. You are gathering evidence, not consciously necessarily, in the specific Virgo quality of someone whose intelligence runs continuously in the background of their experience, noting and filing and connecting without the conscious mind having to direct the process, whose understanding of what is happening develops quietly and completely while the surface of the engagement looks like simple, uncomplicated presence. You were present, and behind the presence working, you were present, and behind the presence working, I want to describe the specific quality of Virgo intelligence in this mode because it is distinctive enough to deserve its own description. It does not announce itself. Most forms of intelligence have a quality of display, of wanting to demonstrate what it has noticed, of feeling the pull toward the showing of what it has processed. The specific, social, I want you to know that I see what is happening quality that makes the keeping quiet an active resistance rather than a natural state. Virgo intelligence in observation mode has a different quality. It is content not to display. It understands that the displaying of what it knows at the wrong moment is a loss of something more valuable than the satisfaction of the display. That the picture being assembled is more useful, incomplete, and still developing than it is complete and disrupted. That patience in the observation mode is not the suppression of the intelligence, but its most sophisticated expression. So the intelligence does what it does without announcing what it is doing. And the person who was supposed to be fooling you was, in the most precise sense of the word, fooling themselves into believing that because you were not showing what you saw, you were not seeing. The confusion of restraint with absence. The specific, predictable, ultimately costly mistake of assuming that because something is not being expressed, it is not being experienced. You were experiencing everything. Let me describe what the played dumb actually looked like, because the behavior has a specific texture and it deserves its description. It looked like not asking the follow-up question. The specific moment when something was said that a careful listener would have challenged, that had an inconsistency in it, or a gap, or a quality of not quite adding up that was visible to someone paying the quality of attention you were paying. And instead of asking the follow-up question that would have produced a defensive response and a closed-down answer, you let it pass. You registered it, filed it, waited for the next piece. It looked like not reacting to the reveal. The specific moments when something happened that would have produced a visible reaction from someone who was encountering it for the first time, who did not know what was coming, who was surprised, and you produced the appropriate for the context response, not the fully accurate one, the one that matched what someone who did not already understand the situation would reasonably produce. And behind the appropriate response, the quiet, continuous, completely accurate picture assembling. I want to speak to why this is called playing dumb rather than simply being patient. Because the distinction matters. Playing dumb requires something. It requires the specific active quality of managing your own expression, of knowing something and not letting the knowing be visible, of being in the presence of a situation that is revealing itself as something you already understood and maintaining the specific, neutral, not yet seeing quality of expression that allows the situation to continue revealing itself rather than closing down in response to the awareness that you have already seen it. That is not easy. It requires the specific quality of someone who has enough control over their own presentation that the interior does not automatically leak through to the exterior. Who can hold knowledge in their interior while presenting something else on their exterior, without the discomfort of the holding being visible, without the specific telltale quality of someone who's trying to hide what they know showing through in the effort of the hiding? You maintained it for however long the full picture required to assemble itself through whatever the interactions were that were producing the picture, with whatever quality of composure the maintenance required, without the knowing breaking through in ways that would have disrupted the gathering. That is sophisticated. That is the intelligence that is now being seen. Let me speak to the hypocrite piece, because the title names it, and it is the specific thing that is now visible to the people who are calling this person out. The hypocrisy was always there, not in a way that was immediately, obviously visible in the specific, requires the full picture quality of something that is only legible once you can see the whole thing. That needed the accumulation of evidence that the played dumb allowed to accumulate. That reveals itself when enough of the behavior has been observed to show the pattern rather than simply the individual incidents. The individual incidents were explainable. The pattern is not. What people are now seeing is the pattern, and the pattern shows the gap between what this person has been presenting themselves as and what they have been actually operating as, between the values they have been claiming and the values their behavior has been revealing, between the quality of person they have been performing and the quality of person the full, accumulated, finally legible record demonstrates them to be. That gap is the hypocrisy. And the gap is wide enough to produce the specific audible response that the title names people are calling this out, not quietly. I want to speak to why the calling out is happening now, because the timing is not random and the why of the timing is important. The picture is complete. Whatever the full picture required to be fully legible, whatever the final piece was that made the pattern undeniable rather than merely suggestive, has arrived, has been added to everything that preceded it. And in the adding, something that had been explainable as individual incidents has crossed into something that is no longer explainable as anything other than a pattern. Patterns require a critical mass of evidence. The critical mass has been reached. And when critical mass is reached, what previously required the specific generous quality of benefit of the doubt to maintain stops requiring it, stops being possible to maintain without a quality of credulity that most people, once the pattern is legible, are not willing to provide. The benefit of the doubt has been exhausted, and what exists in its absence is simply the picture. Clear, accurate, unavoidable. People are calling this out, not quietly. I want to describe the specific quality of what the calling out sounds like, because it has a particular texture that I think is worth naming. It sounds like recognition. The specific collective, oh, so that's what was happening quality of people who had sensed something but could not fully articulate it until the pattern became legible, who had a vague, low-grade, I am not entirely comfortable with this quality of awareness about this person that they could not fully justify with specific evidence, and who are now in the full picture being visible, having the specific slightly relieved experience of their own sensing being confirmed. The calling out is partly that relief. The relief of people who had been holding a not quite right sense of something and who are now understanding what that sense was tracking. And it is partly something else. The specific protective quality of people who are watching what happened to you and who are expressing in the calling out something on your behalf, not necessarily at your request, from the specific moral clarity of people who have an accurate sense of what you are and what you deserved and what the gap between that and how you were treated actually looks like. The calling out is, in part, advocacy for you from the people whose assessment of the situation has been accurate all along. Tell me in the comments if you have been watching this unfold, if you have had the experience I described in the opening of this reading of seeing something clearly and choosing to let it continue to reveal itself rather than disrupting it at the earliest moment. Whether the played dumb was a conscious choice or simply the natural expression of your intelligence holding its ground while the situation completed its own reveal. Tell me how this reads from inside your experience. Let me speak to what the people calling this out are actually saying, because calling someone dumb is the title's framing, and it is not the complete picture of what is being expressed. The dumb being named is a specific kind of dumb, not a general intelligence criticism. The specific, targeted, how did you not see this coming quality of bewilderment at someone who made a particular miscalculation, who operated with an assumption that proved to be spectacularly wrong, who behaved in ways that depended on a reading of the situation, a reading of you specifically, that turns out to have been inaccurate. The miscalculation was you. They miscalculated who you were, what you were capable of, what you were seeing, what you were doing with what you were seeing. They operated from a model of you that was significantly below the actual version that had missed or chosen not to integrate the specific, evident, always there qualities that make you who you are. And when you play dumb successfully for long enough, the moment of the reveal has a particular, specific, slightly devastating quality for the person whose miscalculation is being exposed. Because it becomes clear not only that they were wrong about you, but that they were wrong about you in a way that was avoidable. That the qualities they missed were not hidden, were not obscure or subtle or requiring special access to detect, were simply there, observable, visible to anyone paying the quality of attention that you deserve to be paid. The dumb in the title is the dumb of someone who should have known better, who had access to the information, who did not integrate it, and who is now confronting the cost of that failure. I want to speak to something about what this situation reveals about you, because the reading has been primarily about what happened, and I want to bring it to you directly. Your restraint was remarkable. The specific quality of someone who could have moved earlier, who could have deployed what they knew at the point of knowing it and disrupted the situation in a way that would have produced some immediate relief of the discomfort of holding the knowledge, and who chose not to, who held the position until the position produced what it was capable of producing, who exercised the specific, difficult, rarely credited quality of strategic patience. That patience produced what it produced, not because patience always produces this, because in this specific situation with this specific person, the patience allowed the full picture to assemble in a way that is now legible to everyone. Not just to you, where it has been legible for a while, to the people around you, to the people who were also observing, to the specific, multiple, now also calling this out group, whose voices are the ones the title is naming. Your patience produced the collective recognition, not just your own vindication, the vindication of everyone who had a good enough read on the situation to have sensed what you knew. Your patience produced the collective recognition, not just your own vindication, the vindication of everyone who had a good enough read on the situation to have sensed what you knew. I want to name something about the nature of that vindication that I think is important. Vindication that arrives through the facts is different from vindication that arrives through argument. When you argue your case, you produce a particular kind of outcome. People hear your argument, they assess it, they decide how much weight to give it based on their assessment of you, of your credibility, of whether you might have reasons to shade the truth in your own direction. And even when they believe you, there is a quality of the outcome that remains slightly provisional. That carries the specific lingering quality of this person says, and we have decided to believe them. When the facts produce the vindication, the outcome is different. The facts do not have credibility problems, do not shade things in their own direction, do not produce the specific, slightly contingent quality of we have decided to believe this person. They simply are what they are. And the recognition they produce in the people encountering them is not the recognition of someone who has been persuaded. It is the recognition of someone who has simply seen. That is the quality of vindication you are now receiving. Not persuaded into, arrived at by people who can simply see, what is there, let me speak to what comes next. Because the calling out is the current moment, and the current moment is not where this ends. Something is adjusting. For the person being called out, in the specific, uncomfortable, cannot be escaped quality of someone whose public presentation of themselves is no longer being received at face value, who is having to navigate the specific, unpleasant landscape of being seen as they actually are rather than as they were presenting, whose carefully managed image has been disrupted by the legibility of the pattern. That navigation is not smooth, and the disruption of the carefully managed image tends to produce the specific, revealing quality of how someone behaves when they are not behaving for an audience. When the management is stressed, when the gap between who they were performing and who they actually are is under pressure, that quality is about to be visible. More of the picture still assembling. And for you, in all of this, the specific position of someone who has been watching the full picture assemble from before anyone else could see what they were looking at, you already know. The collective recognition catching up to what you knew is not new information. It is confirmation. I want to say something directly about the position you are in right now. You can let others do the work, not from a place of detachment or of not caring about what happens, from the specific earned quality of someone who has already completed their own seeing, who does not need to add their voice to the calling out because the calling out is already happening, who does not need to perform the revelation because the revelation is performing itself. You can simply be in the position you have always been in, the one where you knew, and watch the rest of the picture become clear to everyone else. That position, the one where you are simply present as the evidence continues to assemble around a truth you already understood, is one of the most powerful positions available. You earned it through the patience, through the played dumb, through the specific, difficult, ultimately vindicated choice to let the full picture arrive rather than disrupting it at the partial stage. Now it has arrived for everyone. As we close, I want to give you one image, a room, you in it, in the specific, settled quality of someone who has been in the room longer than anyone else and who has therefore seen more than anyone else has seen, who has the particular quality of someone who is not learning what is happening, who is watching other people arrive at what was already fully understood, and the specific, quiet, completely contained quality of someone who is allowing that arrival without announcing their own prior position, without performing the I knew all along, simply allowing the truth to be what it has always been. The position you have been in since the beginning, and the satisfaction not of having won something, of having seen something clearly, when seeing clearly was the hardest and the most important thing.